Okay, everyone. So let's see. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At least 6 of us have our cameras on. I think that's good enough. So I'll go ahead and get started. So for those of you who don't remember who I am, my name's Michael Downs. I think a lot of you already know who I am, but this will help my professor also recognize who this speech belongs to. So we'll get started. So just a little preface. The point of this speech is to pass along a little bit of information. It's an informative speech. The speech is going to convey a little bit of information about how gloves are supposed to be used in a food service operation, and then what that would look like as far as how the gloves would be used to protect food, why gloves have some limits, and then also that there's some misuse that can be a cause of cross-contamination. So to kind of set the tone for this, I want you to kind of take a little journey with me. So when I was at the store last, I went to the deli, and while I was at the deli, the clerk there, they went and first grabbed some raw hamburger patties to help one customer, and then they went and answered a telephone call, and then they adjusted a scale to help another customer, printed a label from that same scale, and then they went right over without changing gloves to slice some ready-to-eat meats and cheeses for use for another customer. And so this kind of helps set that tone. I think we all understand the way that this might impact us as customers, and then also the way we might see that that kind of service as it unfolds. And so the main idea for this first part here is that we want to understand that the gloves are there to protect food. Okay, so the main idea there with the FDA Food Code 2022 recognizes the fact that gloves are meant to prevent microorganisms from spreading to other foods, and that they also help prevent physical contamination from things like paint chips from your nails if you happen to be wearing nail polish. And it protects ready-to-eat foods for customers who are eating those foods, since they won't be cooked, and also that physical contamination. So it's meant to be a barrier between the food handler and the food that they're handling. One of the ways that this is reinforced is through the Food Allergy Research Education Institute's 2025 Best Practices for Food Allergies in Management and Higher Education. And the way that gloves can help is that they inhibit allergen transfers, and this helps protect people that have allergies from those allergens, which are typically proteins that are in food that can be passed along to other foods. And it reduces some of those accidental exposures that can come up when those foods start to get cross-contaminated. So allergen transfer can happen when gloves aren't changed and folks handle something like peanuts, and then they go and handle another food that would be safe for somebody, typically, as if they were allergic to peanuts. So gloves help protect foods, but they do have some limitations. So the idea of these limitations is that they can offer sort of false sense of security to the food handler. The CDC in 2024 put out an article called About Hand Washing as a Healthy Habit in the Kitchen. Gloves contamination happens quickly as hands. So no matter the same way your hands get contaminated is the same way that your gloves can get contaminated. So when you touch your phone, you touch your hair, you touch your body, those can start to have an impact on whether a glove is doing the job that it's supposed to do. And so when you touch those phones, registers, equipment, store handles, all of those things can lead to a transfer of bacteria or potentially hazardous conditions for folks who might have allergies. Another supporting idea is found in the International Journal of Sanitary Engineering Research in 2024, and that was in their article, Disposable Gloves Protection or Just a False Sense of Security. So workers often wear gloves far longer than they're supposed to, and they skip hand washing instead and use gloves. So they may use the glove and then wash their hands after they're supposed to, instead of washing their hands on a more frequent basis, or they even just use the glove and don't wash their hand at all. So they'll just change their gloves, and there's supposed to be a step in between where they wash their hands. And they learn to over rely on these gloves rather than utilize hand washing, which would end up being a much safer situation. So this increases cross contamination in the way that it is. So gloves only function as they're intended when they're used correctly, right? And using them incorrectly can actually make the situation worse. So for this, the cross-contamination factor happens when gloves are used improperly, and it increases that risk of cross-contamination. So in the Journal of Food Protection in 2010, the improper glove use was linked to foodborne illness outbreaks. And so one of the ways that this study had found that this happens is that ready-to-eat tortillas that were handled by gloved workers showed 50% more bacteria on them when compared to tortillas that were handled by people who only had bare hands and were washing their hands. And so this means that improper glove use can be a source of contamination when they are substituted for hand washing. And then on the other side of this too, we also see that insufficient glove changes showed a 750% increase in microbial presence. One of the ways that this happens is that the gloves end up trapping heat, and then your hands perspirate, there's more moisture in there, so there becomes more bacteria on your hands because your gloves are covering them instead. And so the best way to kind of navigate those things turns to washing your hands rather than using the gloves. So findings show that both what gloves can do and how their benefits can be compromised through improper use. So one of the ways that this kind of came to an interest for me was during food service during COVID. I started to recognize after the fact that people were still doing a lot of the same habits that they had during COVID. So a lot of times they would wear their gloves to protect themselves and not to protect foods. So they would continue to wear these gloves all day long. They wouldn't change them. They would go ahead and just touch their phone, open door handles, and continue to wear the same pair of gloves. And on top of that, not wash their hands in place of them. So this is kind of where some of that comes from, and a little bit of that passion shows itself in why I chose this topic. And then as far as what the speech has done for us today, right? So in conclusion, we're looking at the fact that the design of gloves is meant to provide a barrier for microorganisms and allergens to not impact foods. And those gloves only work when people are going to use them properly, and when hands get contaminated just as much as gloves. And gloves can't be substitutes for hand washing. And then so misuse is a source of cross-contamination. And so I hope that this speech has helped provide a little bit of understanding about glove design, their limitations, and what happens when misuse occurs. And I really thank you guys for taking some time out of your day and joining me here during this speech. And hopefully you'll join me for the next one that I might have to do. So I appreciate it.